Can you even see my shirt? It says directed by Ryan Johnson. Okay, so I filmed a clip before this a couple of days ago on Christmas, actually, so about a week ago. And I have been really sick since I think about like December 24th. I remember that day I woke up with a sore throat, really nervous, got a COVID test, and it was negative. So, and I've taken a test since then, also negative. I don't know what's going on, probably just the flu, a cold, something like that. But I feel like I'm kind of on the upswing, so I'm feeling a little bit better, which is great. It is January 2nd, and I don't know if I'm going to use the clip that I had filmed on Christmas, because I don't know if I like it all that much looking back on it. We'll see it. Maybe I'll use a little bit of that clip. I'm not sure. But I also have some clips of me going to go see Spider-Man No Way Home, which I loved. It was amazing. It was iconic. Absolutely such an amazing movie. I'm so glad I went to go see it in theaters. I think I saw that sometime on like the 20-something. So let's talk about some of the books that I'm currently reading. So I finally charged my Kindle after I haven't even used it for months, because I really want to use it this year. I have so many books on my Kindle that I want to read, and I was actually looking through my library and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that I downloaded all those books. I probably should read them. So I have my Kindle. I have this really cute sticker on the back that one of my friends on Twitter, Danielle, gave me. And it's like a Taylor Swift bookish sticker. It's really cute. It has like a candle that says maple lattes, and then the books say, "This is the golden age of something good and right and real," which is a quote from the album Red. And it's from State of Grace, which is one of my favorite songs from that album. I really love this sticker, and it fits perfectly on my Kindle, which I'm so excited about. But yeah, have a lot of books I want to read on my Kindle, and then I'm doing some rereads for the beginning of the year just to kind of start it off right. So my first reread that I'm doing is of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. As you can see, I've already started to tab it up, and I've already started to do some annotations as well. I don't know if you can see any of that, but yeah. I'm currently on chapter 4, and I am loving it so much. I'm on page 45. It's such a good reread. I realized that I haven't reread it since Evermore came out, and when I first read this book, I listened to Folklore, and it destroyed me. It literally destroyed every part of me. I remember reading the last 50 pages of this book while listening to Cardigan on repeat and just sobbing. Like it took me so long to finish this book because I could not read through the tears. And then the other reread that I'm going to get into once I'm done with Addie is The Ring and the Crown by Melissa de la Cruz. So I read this book probably about 7 or 8 years ago. It's been a really long time, and I remember I absolutely loved this book. I actually tweeted about it recently because I was like, I really miss book trailers, and this book has one of the best book trailers I have ever seen in my entire life. It is like a literal movie trailer. It's so gorgeous. I will link it down below. You guys have to go see it. If you haven't seen it, I don't know what you're doing. It's kind of like a historical fantasy. It's really fun. So yeah, this is gonna be my first time rereading it. I don't know if I'm gonna like it as much as I did back when I was like 19, because now I'm gonna be turning 27 this year. That's just horrific. That's honestly horrific. So yeah, I'm really excited to reread this. I love Melissa de la Cruz. I never got into her vampire books when I was younger, because contrary to how much I loved Twilight, I don't actually like vampires. So I never read any of her like Bloodlines or whatever series. So yeah, this was one of my first Melissa de la Cruz books when I was 19 or 20, and I loved it so much, so I'm really excited to get back into it. Yeah, so I have this book, I have The Invisible Life, and I've been listening to this audiobook because of course I need to have at least one physical book, one audiobook going at all times, and this is Love, Chai, and Other Four-Letter Words by Anika Sharma, and I'm currently 38% of the way through. I have some mixed emotions about this book. I think it's really cute. It's very fluffy. It's so adorable. It's like these two people who live in the same building and they run into each other by happenstance when he locks himself out of the building, and she's like, hey, I can let you back in, and they get to talking. It's really cute, but there's just something about it that I find unbelievable. I think it's kind of the way that the male character is written and like him and his friends are written, because I just don't buy it. It's almost too good to be true. Like I can suspend my disbelief pretty far, but for some reason this guy is just too perfect, and like he's kind of like crafted in that like guy with like a secret shady bad past, but it's not really shady because it's just like some family issues, but he's like such a good guy, and like I love that. I think that's really cool. But for some reason he's just too nice of a guy that I'm like, he doesn't seem real. He doesn't seem like a real guy. So anyway, my battery is flashing, so I need to go and change this battery. So enough rambling, and I will talk to you guys later. Okay, so I feel like I need to update you all a little bit. I swear this vlog is going to be such a mess. I don't know how it's going to look when it's all put together. I'm nervous. Okay, so I don't remember exactly what I was doing on my last update for this vlog. I'm pretty sure I was probably reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. So I'm still reading it. I haven't really been able to get to it because I just haven't had the time to read physically at the moment, because at first I was sick and just did not feel up to reading physically, and then also I've just been cleaning a lot, like literally the entire house, my room, everything, and I just have not had time to read physically. So within this first week of January, I've just been listening to audiobooks. So I think I mentioned that I finished Love, Chai, and Other Four-Letter Words, and I gave that a 3 out of 5 stars. It was fine. Like I wasn't super blown away by the story or anything. It was fun though to read. So I guess I would recommend it. Just, you know, if you need something to like pass the time. Then I was reading Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert, and I finished that last night. So I gave that a 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I feel like with this series, the books just get better and better, like as you go deeper into the series. Like the first book was really good, but then the second book was even better. So I highly, highly recommend this series. It was so much fun, so steamy, and I feel like the second book is definitely the steamiest book. It's very, very steamy, at least in my standards. And that one is the fake dating trope one. So it's about Danny, and she's a teacher, and she goes kind of viral with this security guard who like saves her and all that. So I'm sure most of you know what this book is about anyway. It was really good. I loved it. And then right when I finished that book, I ended up starting the third book, which is Act Your Age, Eve Brown, and I loved it. It was so good. Even better than the second one. I absolutely loved it. And I feel like this is the one that like I can relate to the most. I feel like the second book with Danny, I didn't really relate to it, but I really enjoyed it. And then the first book with Chloe, I could kind of relate to it, but it just didn't have like that next step for me to like fully relate to it. But then Eve's book I just absolutely loved, like from the very moment it started, and I can totally relate to Eve. I love her and I love Jacob. I love them so much. I was literally, when I was reading this book last night, I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, I could love him. I could love him. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It's about Eve, and she can't really hold down a job. Her parents feel like she needs to really grow up, and so she kind of like runs away and ends up going to this bed and breakfast where they're holding, I was about to say auditions, oh my god, where they're holding interviews, and she just kind of walks in unannounced and is like, hey, I want to interview for this job, and it's a cook position, and they're like, what are you doing here? Who are you? And she ends up leaving, and then when she's about to like drive out of the bed and breakfast, she runs over the guy who owns the bed and breakfast, Jacob, and she ends up having to work there kind of while he's like getting better because she ran over him. It sounds so ridiculous, but I absolutely loved this book. It was so good. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I've read 3 books this week. I think I've done pretty well. I think I've definitely found like a new favorite romance book, which is so much fun. And yeah, so I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to read next, because unfortunately I chose like the worst TBR for this month, because literally none of the books are ones that I can find on any of my audiobook apps. Like, they're just not there. So I need to figure out what I'm going to read next as an audiobook, and I really want it to be from my physical TBR. So if I can do that, that'd be great. And I really want it to be fantasy, so I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna brainstorm a little bit and try to figure out what book I want to read next. So I'm like looking through my favorites on Hoopla, because as you all know, that's my favorite audiobook app. I feel like every time I talk about Hoopla in a video, I have to promote it. Even though I have like no connection to Hoopla at all, I love it so much, seriously. I was thinking maybe, okay, so here's like a couple of books that I was thinking of reading. Among the Beast and Briars by Ashley Poston. The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen. The only one that's on my TBR that has an audiobook that I can read or listen to is The Ring and the Crown by Melissa De La Cruz, and I don't really want to listen to it on audiobook because I want to read it physically and annotate it, so I don't think that's gonna happen. A Fate of Wrath and Flame by K.A. Tucker. Ugh, it just, my app is not happy with me right now. I'm trying to see if there's any other books that I own that I would like to read, because I have a bunch of audiobooks saved on here that like I don't own. So I'm trying to see if I could find any that I do own and that I need to read, because I really want to get, you know, I really want to get through a lot of my physical TBR. I have a lot of books, as you can tell behind me, and they need to get read. So I'm really trying to find something that is going to be on my physical TBR and that I want to read. I have All Girls by Emily Layden. That's not fantasy, but I almost put it on my TBR, honestly, because it's like dark academia. I feel like dark academia is a very like fall and winter kind of genre. So I, you know, was thinking about reading it. I don't know. Ever the Hunted. I think I own Ever the Hunted. I can't remember if I do or don't. Dark of the West was another one I was thinking of, mainly because that was one of the books, if you remember my last haul video that I did, where I like took a couple of books that I wanted to like maybe get rid of and then read the first chapter or first page or whatever and decided whether I wanted to keep it or not. That was one of the books that like really surprised me, and I was really shocked by like the first couple of pages, and it was really interesting. So I might want to read that one. It is a bit longer of an audiobook though. It's 14 hours. Yeah, I think this might be a good one to read. So we'll probably go with this book. We'll see how it goes, and I will update you all later. Okay, so I have to be really quiet when filming this part, but I just finished this book, Dark of the West by Joanna Hathaway. Oh my gosh. Holy crap, this book is good. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And the only reason I didn't give it a full 5 stars is because it felt a little info dumpy in the beginning. The world building is a little convoluted, but overall I loved this book. It has, I described it on Instagram as having Star Wars, Romeo and Juliet, and historical vibes. It has like all of that mixed together because basically you have this princess as one main character. It's a dual perspective. So you have a princess and then you have a pilot, and they are in this sort of Romeo and Juliet situation. And like the whole conflict basically starts off with the pilot's mother being murdered, and like he's from this very influential family, and they think that the princess's mother is the one that orchestrated this whole thing. So that's where like the Romeo and Juliet like conflict comes into play. This book, I didn't even realize until like 30% of the way through that it had Romeo and Juliet vibes. Like it hits every story beat, but it also does so many of them in its own unique way, which I absolutely loved. It was so good. It was so iconic. This book is so heavily underrated. I wish that more people have read this book because I feel like so many people would like it. The one thing I will say is that it is very mature YA. These characters are 18. There are a lot of like very heavy innuendos, if not just saying things outright. So just keep that in mind. It's not like, I honestly don't think it should have been YA, if we're being completely honest. But I mean, I think it would have benefited from being adult fantasy, in my opinion. But anyway, I don't want to talk too much longer because everybody's asleep and I should be being quiet, but I just wanted to talk about this really quick. It was so good. I highly recommend it. I feel like so many people would love it. If you're a fan of Star Wars, if you're a fan of Shakespeare, if you're a fan of historical fiction, fantasy, this is perfect for you. It is so, so good. And I'm going to immediately read the second book because thankfully it's on Hoopla, and I'm really trying to continue with series that I start. So this is, you know, I already finished the Brown Sisters trilogy, which I loved. So we're moving on to this trilogy. Oh, I'm so excited. This book was amazing. It was gorgeous. It was everything. So yeah, I will talk to you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, I thought they were going to get both
Okay, stop. Look at how cute she is. Little Finny. Finny, say hi. Finny, look. Finny. Who's Dad? So cute. I can't remember exactly where I was the last time I updated you all on what I've been reading lately. I feel like this vlog might be a little bit of a mess, might not be as fun and exciting as some of my other vlogs, but this one was kind of messy because I was so sick for a while and I couldn't really like do all the fun vlog stuff because I was sick, and also my brother and his girlfriend have been here for a week, and that also kind of messed with the vlogging. So let me recap what I think I've read for this reading vlog, kind of. Like, it was not dedicated to anything at all, so I can't really like say that like, oh, I read this for my reading vlog. No, I just read it during my reading vlog. So I think it was Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert, Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. I said Danny, right? Anyway, Dark of the West by Joanna Hathaway, and then Storm from the East by Joanna Hathaway. So this has kind of been the vlog of like reading series. So I finished the Brown Sister series and I absolutely loved it. Amazing, iconic, so funny. I'm like kind of in a Brown Sisters hangover a little bit because it was so good. It was so good. So it's been kind of tough like not having those books to read. I'd been kind of like holding off on them for a while because I knew I would like them and I knew that I'd be sad when they were over, and I was correct. I absolutely loved them. Like, they got progressively better each book, which was really exciting. So I read Chloe Brown last year, and if you've seen my favorites video, it was in my favorites video. And I feel like this year's favorites video will also have a Brown Sisters book in it. But it will probably be, I mean, this might be a spoiler, but maybe you'll forget it by the end of the year this year. Act Your Age, Eve Brown was my favorite book of the series. It was so good. It hit it out of the park. I could so relate to Eve, and also the guy in the book, which I can't remember his name at the moment. It's not coming to me. I feel like his name was like Jacob. Yes, his name was Jacob. And I loved him so much. I totally fell in love with him. He is just, I love him. I can't even explain why I love him. I just do. And then I ended up reading the Glass Alliance series. That's a trilogy. It was published in April 20th, 2021. And I haven't gotten it yet because they don't have the audiobook. And I'm like, excuse me, I need the audiobook because I've been reading this entire series as an audiobook. But I do have a Barnes & Noble gift card, so I was thinking that I might buy it from Barnes & Noble. I don't know. I'll have to see. A couple of months ago, before I did my unhaul, this book was like so close to being like thrown off my shelf and just forgotten about. And then I did my most recent unhaul, and that was where I chose a couple of stacks of books that I was kind of on the fence about and read the first couple of pages of each book to see if I wanted to keep it or not. And this one made the cut. Dark of the West was one of the books that I kept, and I'm so glad that I did because it got a 4 to 5 stars for me, but it was still amazing. Like, I immediately fell in love with it, and the writing style is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, pick up that book and read the first page and tell me that it's not beautiful. Like, that writing is just immaculate. And I also didn't realize that it was going to be more of like a Romeo and Juliet retelling. It's pretty, I wouldn't say it's like a strict retelling. It's not like, you know, clearly Romeo and Juliet, but it does have so many of the same elements and so many of the same story beats. So I kind of feel okay calling it a little bit of a Romeo and Juliet retelling. It also has like major Star Wars vibes if Star Wars was set in the early 20th century with airplanes, instead of like, you know, TIE fighters or X-Wings or whatever. It is really good. It has that, like, it has everything I would want from a fantasy book, because it's fantasy, but it's not like high fantasy with like magical creatures and magic systems and stuff like that. It's more of like a historical fantasy in like the strictest sense of historical fantasy. It's not necessarily tied to our real world. I think that there are definite like parallels, but it's not like, oh, Paris or England or whatever. It's these fantasy countries and fantasy worlds, but it feels very realistic. I really enjoyed that. And it reminds me a lot of one of my work in progresses from a couple years ago. I kind of wrote something very similar where it's a fantasy, but there's no magic. It's really just like political intrigue, court intrigue, stuff like that, rather than magic, which I love. I think that's super fun. I don't know if I'm selling this book at all. I feel like this book is so niche that like not everybody's gonna be like into the idea, but if you're into Romeo and Juliet, if you like that idea, definitely check this out. And it definitely like follows the true meaning of Romeo and Juliet, where it focuses a lot on like the newer generation of children and like how they feel, like their fresh ideas between like the complications of like war and stuff like that. So I really enjoy that. I love when an author can take Romeo and Juliet and actually use its true meaning rather than being like, these stupid kids fell in love and they're so stupid for falling in love. It's like, that's not the point. That's not what Shakespeare is trying to say with Romeo and Juliet. It's so reductive and just completely false. So I really like when an author can stick true to the source material and not try to like go with the popular idea of what Romeo and Juliet is all about. Anyway, I'm gonna get off my Romeo and Juliet soapbox because I can stay up there for a while. I could link down below the live stream that I did for Romeo and Juliet. That was about like an hour long. So if you really do want me to talk about it for an hour, go watch that. So the first book was really good, very solid. I enjoyed it. Then we get to the second book, which was Storm of the East, right? Yeah, Storm of the East, and I loved it so much. It blew me away. Like, it just hit it out of the park. It took everything that was good in the first book and amplified it. And I love the way that these storylines and these characters got so complicated, and there's so many secrets that were like being revealed and being held and being created, and it just makes for a really interesting and complex story, which I love. I love when in a second book they separate the characters and it actually means something. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes in a second book an author will separate the two main characters, or the main character, whatever the dynamic is. My battery's gonna die, I have to go change it. Where I was leaving off, I feel like sometimes, especially in the second book in like a trilogy or like a longer series, the author can separate the two main characters, and it's not always for the best, or it's not always for a purpose, and it really is just used to create conflict. Like, the separation itself is the conflict, rather than creating conflict through the separation, like creating it beyond the separation, I guess. And that's what they did in the second book, and I loved it. Like, it was iconic. It worked so well because the conflict wasn't that they were separated. The conflict was that things happened for each character on their own that created more character development for them, and that was kind of what created the conflict. Like, they learned more about themselves and more about the people around them, more about the causes they were fighting for, and that was kind of what created this conflict. There is like one that is left over from the first book, but I don't want to go too far into it because it's total spoilers. But yeah, if you are even thinking about reading Dark of the West, I highly recommend it. It's such a good book, and the series is equally as good, at least so far. I haven't read the third book yet, like I said, so I'm definitely gonna have to get my hands on that, whether it's an audiobook or not. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this vlog. It's probably a long one. It's probably a very like talky one. So maybe in my next vlog, I'll try to do more B-roll. I don't know if you guys like more B-roll or if you like more talking, but I typically like to try to find a good balance. So we'll see in my next vlog. But if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. Also go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, TikTok, Storygraph. All the links are going to be down below, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!
Ooh, I thought it'd be me and you. Oh.